Please be seated. The court is now back in session. And before I hand the floor to the defense team for Kieu Sampon, the Chairman would like to inform Counsel Copper that a recent decision to your question to the witness Pitcham this morning is not ruled upon now, as the Chamber needs time to review the actual transcript and the relevant legal frameworks. The Chamber would like now to hand the floor to Kieu Sampon's defense to put the questions to Mr. Pitcham.
Mr. President, with permission of Counsel for Kieu Sampon, I would like to ask a question following up on the earlier discussion in respect of the redacted version of the statement of this witness. We now have received the non-redacted version. Caviardé is the French word, I understand, for redacted. So I would like to ask one quick follow-up question to the witness, specifically in respect of E127/7.1.4. Mr. Pekchim earlier asked you a question whether you know if any former cadres from the Southwest Zone or Northwest Zone still live in Udor-Menchi province. You answered this question coming from investigators as well, and you referred to two people that I would like to ask you further questions about. In answer 45, you referred to a person called Hun, who now is a Major General and also an advisor to the Prime Minister, and to Kieu, a Brigadier General, and that both of them are living nearby Trapang Prasat Market. These two men, Hun and Kieu, were they cadres from the Southwest Zone or the Northwest Zone?
I would like to clarify that I do not know these two persons, Hun and Kieu.
I'm having your statement in front of me, Mr. Pekchim, and you are saying, and I quote literally, another man is Hun. He is now a Major General and also an advisor to the Prime Minister. And another man is Kieu, a Brigadier General. Both of them are living nearby Trapang Prasat Market. So I'm reading just from your statement. My only question is, were they cadres from the Southwest Zone or the Northwest Zone?
Mr. President, I might suggest to counsel that they read, I guess his Khmer National Council isn't here, but I'm pretty sure he's mispronouncing at least the last name, but I think a Khmer speaker would be better to pronounce these names.
Maybe you can help me. Kau.
Counsel Kongsamon, the first name is Hun and the second name is Kau. Hun is a military cadre, and a Kao was also a military cadre, and they have been the military officers till the present time, and they were attached to a division, a military division, and they are both advisors at the moment.
Thank you for clarification, but my question was were they Southwest Zone cadres or Northwest Zone cadres?
They were from the Southwest Zone, actually from Cambodia province.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Good afternoon, witness. My name is Arthur Werken. I'm one of Mr. Kusampan's counsels. I know that you are tired. Many questions have been put to you, and I'm aware, of course, that I'm coming at the very end of this process. So I'm going to try to focus my questions as much as I can. And, of course, I will try not to put to you questions that have already been put to you by the other parties. However, I might put to you questions that were put to you during your 8 interviews. But that's completely normal because you are here to repeat before the chamber what you had said in the interviews. So my first series of questions is going to concern the civil war between 1970 and 1975. In your region, I'd like to know if you can describe the fighting that took place there, the bombing campaigns, the warlike events that took place in Tram Kak district between 1970 and 1975. I'd like to know if, according to you, according to your vision of things, if you noted if the fighting was very harsh with many victims or not. What can you say about the fighting that took place there, basically?
The fighting during that war was very intense. It was between the former Lunal soldiers and the Khmer Rouge soldiers, though both sides were Khmer. And of course, it was a rather raging battlefield at the time. It lasted for a few months, and in fact, it's also engaged in aerial bombardment for about 200 days and nights. I myself had to take refuge in a trench during that period at night time, and I only emerged during the day. It was a very intensive aerial bombardment, if I recall it. And the aerial bombardment was to the base of the Damrai mountain, and the planes kept turning one after another to drop bombs in that particular area. It came from all directions, south and north. People were very afraid, and we did not dare to use firewood as we was afraid the smoke would be detected and then we would be bombed. We thought very hard as to what we could do in order to overcome the dire situation, and the only solution that we reached was to counterattack in order to survive and to defeat the other side. We had our force, and for the male unit, including the elder ones, would engage in food supply to the front battlefield. That is all just in a summary. And in fact, the rice was transported in a handmade container. The container was indeed useful as it could contain rice for the soldiers at the front battlefield. And my response, although it's a bit lengthy, is in response to your lengthy question as well.
You are right, absolutely. My question was long, but it involved especially the fighting and the violence of the fighting. And therefore, did you note yourself or did you hear about any fighting taking place around Ang Tasom? Is this a place you know, by the way? And was there any kind of intense fighting in the area around Ang Tasom?
Yes. In fact, the fighting was more intensified in Ang Tasom area than in the Takeo provincial town. And after the battle was concluded in Ang Tasom area, it became more intensified in the provincial town of Takeo.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask you if you got to know the fact, if North Vietnamese soldiers who were present in Cambodia between 1970 and 1975 were using the Khmer villages as human shields to face the bombings of the Khmer Republic and of their allies. Was this a practice of the North Vietnamese soldiers, and were you informed of this?
No, it did not happen in the village, but those soldiers stayed in the forest. However, sometimes they came down to the village to ask for food, but mainly they stayed hidden in the forest.
Thank you. By the way, during this period, again, that is to say between 1970 and 1975, were you informed of what the Khmer Republic forces, that is to say the Lon Nol army and the South Vietnamese army, which were his allies, were you aware of the fact that they were committing atrocities against the Vietnamese who were living in that district?
The North Vietnamese who were in the area did not threaten us. They spoke to us casually, and of course, how could they threaten us because we were also armed? So this event did not happen.
Mr. Petchim, please let me interrupt you. I was not speaking about the North Vietnamese. I was speaking about the South Vietnamese. And I asked you if the South Vietnamese correction interpreter were committing atrocities against the Vietnamese who were living in your district.
No.
Or were the Lon Nol soldiers doing that as well?
I did not see the event that happened between Vietnamese and Vietnamese. Of course, there were fighting by both Vietnamese sides in Sla Cu and in Ong Ta Saum. In particular, the militia in about 10 villages within the district stay close together and fought with them. And this is just a brief summary of the event. In the open forum, the South Vietnamese soldiers stayed with the Lon Nol soldiers, and they joined hands in the battlefield. So when they joined hands in the battlefield, it was in a rather larger scale. And when the Lon Nol soldiers came to engage in the battlefield alone, they would engage it in a smaller scale. And usually they would leave their base to engage in the skirmish.
I'm going to try to be a bit more specific with my question to help you answer it. What I would like to know is if you have information relative to massacres, atrocities that allegedly were committed by the Lon Nol army and by his allies, his South Vietnamese allies, against the Vietnamese civilian population living in your district. That's what I'd like to know. Either you have information about that, either you were aware of certain atrocities that took place or not. And if you were aware, please describe what you know.
No, I was not aware of that. And yes, in my previous response, I did not fully understand your question. And please try to make your question straight to the point, and please make it short and simple, as I am rather fatigued now, and my recollection is also not that good. Thank you.
Fine. I promise I will do my best. Now I'd like to revisit a question that was put to you the day before yesterday, that is to say 22 April 2015. A question put to you by Mr. Del Lysek. It was 10:33 and 13 seconds in the morning, and the international co-prosecutor asked you the following, and I will read his question. Free translation. Witness, now I would like to speak about the Vietnamese connected to Trom Kat district. I'd like to know what happened to the Vietnamese who were living in this district and in Takeo province after, and I stress this, after 17 April 1975. And you answered, and I will read out your answer. Back then, Vietnamese soldiers were everywhere in Tram Coc district. Not only civilians were there, the soldiers were also in the forest. And Vietnamese would trade with the Cambodians. So the Vietnamese soldiers would trade with Cambodian soldiers. And before doing that, the rule was that they would ask us for permission when they would buy rice from us. And we would sell it in bulk. Back then, the party made arrangements with Vietnam for the repatriation of Vietnamese to Vietnam. And then the Vietnamese returned to Vietnam. I'm speaking about the Vietnamese soldiers here. The repatriation only took 2 days. Our request back then consisted also in repatriating Vietnamese civilians as well as the same time as the Vietnamese soldiers. End of quote. Free translation. So my question is the following. The International Court Prosecutor asked you a question that was focusing on the period after 17 April 1975. And when I hear your answer today, can you confirm that your answer indeed concerned the period after 17 April 1975?
Allow me to clarify the matter. Maybe I was confused in my statement. The Vietnamese withdrawal actually took place in 1972. That is before the liberation in 1975. At that time, UNCA made an arrangement for the repatriation of the Vietnamese, and that took place in 1972, though I cannot recall the month.
Thank you, Mr. Pek Chim, for this clarification. Now, I'm going to speak about another topic, and I'm going to put to you a few questions about filiation issues. I'd like to ask you if you know, first of all, if there was any kind of kinship link between Ta Tiet and Ta Mok.
They were in-law, brother-in-law, and younger brother and elder brother-in-laws.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to know if you know a person called Sim, who was probably the district secretary of Trang district. And if you know this person, do you know if Sim had a wife by the name of Sem?
Sim had a wife named Sam, and Sim died at the refugee camp named Pu Noi. As for Sam, I had not seen that person since we departed.
Thank you, Mr. Pek Chim. On 17 March 2015, before this chamber, witness Riel Sam testified. He was a former hospital chief, and he came on 17 March 2015. It is transcript E1/278.1. And just after 10:53 and 24 seconds in the morning, he spoke about Yekom's character. This is Tamok's daughter, who was the head of Tramkak district, and this is what he said. The following question was put to him. Could you describe to the chamber what kind of district chief Yekom was and what happened to Yekom? And this is the answer. Back then, Yekom was a district secretary, and then she became crazy. She couldn't stop speaking. When I met her, sometimes she would order to cut down big trees or to dig soil or to pull out roots. But in fact, she was just simply mad. End of quote. This morning, when you were questioned about Tamok's daughter, Sim, you spoke about her mental problems. And my question is, therefore, since you were the deputy of Com, was she already mentally unstable before she left her post at the district? What did you note with regard to that?
At that time, we were thinking of as how we could find a physician to treat her condition, and we actually found a Vietnamese physician. In fact, from what we observed, she was psychiatric. But I would not really say that she was mentally unstable, but she had some psychiatric issues, and she was pretty determined in what she said. If she said she wanted to do something, she would do it. And she got this condition once. And actually, when she was ill with that condition, she went for a treatment in Vietnam. She recovered, and for the second time, we tried to find a Vietnamese physician to provide her with the treatment, but unfortunately, it failed. And she became an unwedded wife through the mood. Although later on we tried to organize a symbolic wedding ceremony following our tradition, so that she would be.
Mr. Pechtim, I want to stop you immediately. What I would like to know is whether she continued working up until when you found the Vietnamese doctor for him. When you found a Vietnamese doctor for her, was she still at her position?
Yes, she was there when the Vietnamese physician was treating her. And the illness recovered for a few months, and then she fell ill again. So it took several times for her to be treated.
Je vous remercie. Ce médecin vietnamien.
Thank you. Was that Vietnamese doctor affiliated to the Khmer Rouge regime? Was he working for the Khmer Rouge regime? And where exactly, in which position or hospital was he working?
The physicians who were staying close to each other in the jungle. At that time, whoever we could ask for help, we would ask for help. And those Vietnamese physicians were in the forest. And actually, for the Vietnamese troops, they came fully equipped with midwife and physician and other medical personnel. So whenever we needed help, we sought assistance from them.
Thank you. Do you know a person by the name Nam Sơn?
No, I don't. I never heard of Nam Sơn.
Merci.
Thank you. I would like to very quickly talk about Tamok's personality with you. And I would like to ask a somewhat traditional question here. Do you know the expression or the proverb that above Tamok is only his hat? Do you know that expression, and what does it mean to you?
Well, it was not an old saying as such. Actually, it was only the word produced by Tamok himself. I do not really know whether or not this was spoken by Tamok himself, or it was by his own driver, who says that nobody else is above Tamok. Above Tamok is the hat, and above the hat is the sky. That was it. So it was it. I think that it was kind of mockery terms. Actually, it was not an old saying as such. It was mocking in nature and being sarcastic. But I do not know whether Tamok produced it. But I have heard it from others as well. I have come on the truck, and I heard that when I came to visit my hometown in 2000. I heard people talk about that too. It took me one whole day to reach Phnom Penh, and then I went all the way to my hometown. I did not actually have time to sleep.
Very well. Yesterday, you talked about the relationship between Tamok and Pol Pot, and you referred to the fact that they were in conflict with one another. And I believe that you said in late 1978, early 1979, there was such a conflict. My question is whether you were aware of conflict or tensions between Pol Pot and Tamok before that period, that is 1970 and 1979. Was there any conflict between the two politicians? And for the purpose of completeness, may I also ask you whether you were aware that Pol Pot feared Tamok, to the best of your recollection?
Mr. President, I knew at that time, but when the situation was all over, then I learned that. Then when there was a serious confrontation, then in one of the congresses, and then there was a decision to remove Tamok, to my recollection, and then later on, it was in 99, the name was removed, including me as well. So that was a brief summary of that. And then I came back home and I worked. And 005 took me back to work with him.
Mr. Pech King, my question is very simple. You can simply say no. During the period from 1975 to 1979, that is, during the Democratic Kampuchea regime, to your knowledge, did Pol Pot fear Tamok, or were there conflicts between the two persons, that is, during the Democratic Kampuchea regime, to your knowledge?
The President, Mr. Witness, please hold on, and the International Prosecutor, you may proceed.
I have no objection to the question about whether there were conflicts between Pol Pot and Tamok between that period. I do have an objection to the question as to whether Pol Pot feared Tamok. I don't know how this witness would be in any position to answer that. Counsel was leading before, but as to the question as to whether he's aware of any evidence of conflicts prior to 1979, I have no objection.
S'il n'est pas en mesure de répondre, il le dira.
I am not asking the witness to speculate. If he's able to answer the question, he can. I just want to know whether he had heard the expression above Tamok was only his heart. I am not asking you to speculate, witness. All I'm asking you to tell us is whether you were aware of the existence of tension or conflict between Tamok and Pol Pot during the period of Democratic Kampuchea.
No, during that period there was no conflict. They got along very well with each other. But later on, sometime in 1978, no, rather recently, probably in the 1980s or 90s, they split up. The President, Mr. Witness, please focus on the question, because the question is being put to you relates to the confine of the Democratic Kampuchea period from 1975 to 1979, and you are reminded again to respond to only the question asked to you. You do not need to expand it further. Counsel, you may proceed with your question.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this clarification. I will abide by it. Let me change subjects. Mr. Witness, I would now like to put a question to you regarding your brother. You were interviewed by the tribunal investigators on several occasions, including on the 26th of June 2006. The reference is E127/.1.4. In answer number 8, you stated that your blood brother called Kit had replaced Rakut at the head of the region or the sector, that is sector number 13. Can you tell us on what date your brother replaced Tadjuk?
At the time, I left already, and I do not recall the exact date, but I only learned that he had come to take the place. So at that time, we had our own individual responsibility. We did not really care about others. That's why I do not recall the exact date, but I do recall that, of course, he came to take the place.
Alors peut-être pour vous aider un peu,
Perhaps I can assist you somewhat, still with regard to the same question. When you were interviewed on the 28th of February 2013 by Tribunal investigators, and the reference is E127/.1.3, question answer number 1, you stated that you had been sent to the central zone at the same time as Prakyut, and you go on to state, and further later on Mr. Prakyut appeared before this chamber in the first trial segment on the 26th of January 2012. The reference is E1/34.1 at 11 hours 23 minutes 41 seconds, and he stated that he had been transferred to the central zone between February and April 1977. My question to you is as follows. This information you provided, and which Prakyut also gave this chamber, enable you to recall at what date you left and the date on which Prakyut also left. Does this help you to identify the date of the arrival of your brother?
No. I only recall the date I left. I did not know the date when my brother came in, and I did not know the date when Prakyut came in either. And I did not even bother to ask when they came in. I did not actually pay attention to it.
et pour être tout à fait clair,
And in order to be absolutely clear, can you remind the chamber of the date on which you left for the central zone?
It was on the 13th. I left. On the 13th, I got to Phnom Penh. Then I stayed overnight in Phnom Penh, and then I continued my journey the next day, and I reached Kampong Cham on the 14th.
Mr. Witness, I agree with you, but the 13th and 14th of what month? Because the 13th in itself doesn't mean anything.
It was in 1970. It was in 1976, says the witness.
d'accord.
Very well. Let me press on with this question, because you are inconsistent in answering this question, because on the first day of your appearance, you said you left for the Central Zone in 1977, and this morning you said you left in 1976, which is what you are confirming now. I would like us to revisit an event which would enable us perhaps to agree on the date. You remember the award referred to as the Red Honorary Medal. You said you received that Honorary Red Medal in 1976 as head of the district. Since we are talking of economic results in the year 1976, would it not be somewhat absurd that this award, this medal, was awarded to you in early 1976? Perhaps this remark will enable you to choose between the two dates you have given, which are inconsistent, that is 1976 or 1977, that would enable you to give a more logical answer.
Well, if I was mistaken, then it would be from the time when I was interviewed at my home. At that time, I said it was 1976, and then other people told me that it was 1977, and I insisted that it was 1976. But after all, people recorded it as 1977, and I did not protest any further. But to my recollection, it was in 1976, in February 1976. As for the award presentation was in 1975, just soon after the liberation. And this is my clarification as far as that point is concerned, and it is up to the court to decide. So that was the mistake in relation to the recording of the date.
Monsieur, j'ai sous les...
Mr. Witness, I have before me the translation of the revolutionary flag of the 6th of June 1977, and it is document E3/135, which announces that in June 1977, the Red Honorary Medal was given to your district, Tramcock, for the year 1977. Now, were you assigned to Tramcock district at the time when you were awarded this Red Honorary Medal?
Yes, I was there at the time, and Tamok was the one who presented it to me. He actually did not hand it over hand by hand, but actually he just handed over, he put it on the table. He brought it along with him, and then he just placed it on the table. He said, go to Party 105 and all other cadres who had endeavored to work on the rice productions, and then we came first. We had the first place. So that medal was placed in front of me. So that honorary flag was actually equivalent to a gold medal.
Je vous remercie pour...
Thank you for this clarification, sir, which establishes the date I've been looking for. Before this chamber, you referred on several occasions to a woman called Byrne. Can you tell us what were the functions of that woman at the level of the district, and at what date she was assigned to those duties and responsibilities?
At that time, she was the commune chief of Chiang Tong. And then after I left, I did not know whether or not she was promoted to the district level. That I have no idea.
Alors si vous n'en avez
But then, if you don't have an idea, why would you speak about it spontaneously?
I did not know whether she was promoted, and if she was, when was it, I did not know, because I left already, and there was, if there was a promotion of anybody, I did not know when. And at that time, you know, in the promotions of people, they would disappear 1 month or 2 months or so. They would disappear. People who were promoted was not even known to people in that locality and or the province. Then they disappear. So there was frequent removal and appointment in order to be responsive to the developing circumstances. But since I left that already, I did not know anything at all that happened after that. As for Puen, he shared the information with me. He felt sorry for the people, and we have the people. I assisted him.
Merci.
Very well, sir. Thank you for this clarification. My next question to you has to do with the geographical features of your district. Tell me, is the eastern border of Tram Cup district aligned with the railway line? Is the railway line the eastern border of Tram Cup district?
It was along the line, along the national road, but toward the north, it was deviating from that. It covers one commune in Trang district, because Tram could not access to that area. That's why they cut part of Trang district. They had some reserve plot of land adjacent to it. Then they could transport the ammunition along that. There was no buffer, then they need to take that area.
Je voudrais savoir si...
Should I take it then from your answer that the railway line cut across Tram Kok district at one point?
If we leave the provincial town, then we reach the intersection next to the railway. So we cross that intersection toward the north, and we did not go to the turn to the provincial town. So that was the intersection there, and that was the crossroad which.
Merci, monsieur.
Yes, thank you, sir. But I would like you to focus for the time being on my question. Let me repeat it. Did the railway line cut across the territory of Trang Kop district, yes or not? And to get to the railway station, did you have to get out of the territory of Tram Kok district?
Yes. That railway went through Tram Kok district. It also went through Trang district. And that's all.
Connaissez-vous
Do you know a place called Poh Chambak? And if you know that place, where is it in Tram Kak district?
le nom?
Let me please repeat the name. It's Ho Chambak, in fact.
No, I don't. Maybe you use another name to refer to the same location, because I had never been near that area, so I am not that familiar with.
Fine. But do you know if this place, Ho Chambak, therefore, was in Tram Kak district or not? Or was it outside of Tram Kak district?
I am not sure, and I cannot recall it. Maybe I have never been there, or maybe I have, but I cannot recall it, because the name O Chambok refers to a creek or a river, but to me there is no creek or river there, and there could have been a creek or a river in Trang district.
Fine, fine. Thank you for this clarification. Do you know if during the Democratic Kampuchea regime canals were built? Canals that would start at Takeo Lake in order to irrigate Tram Kak district?
I do not understand your question.
Takeo, in fact. Do you know if during the Democratic Kampuchea regime canals were built that would go from Takeo Lake all the way to Tram Kak district in order to irrigate the district? Are you aware of that? Do you know if such canals were built?
I think I can recall that, and that happened after I had left. The canals were built under the supervision of San. And one day I returned. Maybe I came to visit the area and stayed overnight. And I spoke to him as to what he was building, and he said he was building a pumping station. So I stayed in that area or work site overnight with him. That is with sand. But in fact, I stayed overnight at Ong Roka. but a messenger came to call me, so I left in the middle of the night to return to Kampong Cham, and I arrived at dawn. I was so busy with my works at the time, and allow me to repeat that canals were built by San.
Est-ce que
Do you know if this canal was built from Takeo Lake onwards, or was it built from Tramkak onwards? Do you know?
par où a-t-on commencé?
Where did the canal start?
Je vais
I am unsure, so I prefer not to respond to your question. And I believe it started in Takeo, and it went up. And then there was another canal built in Tramko district. So it is rather confusing, and you need to be more precise than that.
Yesterday, one of the judges put questions to you about the possible visit of Mr. Nunchia in Kyosampan to work sites where canals were being built. And you said, in fact, that, and I quote here, this was after 11:39 and 54 seconds yesterday morning, and you said, I knew that they came, but I do not know exactly where they went or where I met them. They went there, and there was someone by the name of Sen, and Sen went to the cooperatives. As far as I remember, I never accompanied him because I had other tasks to complete on the front line. Other people took care of his visit, but I'm not sure he did travel to the cooperative. End of quote. So for the moment, I will stop here, and I'd like to ask you, first of all, the Sen you spoke about yesterday, is it the same Sen that you referred to right now?
I did not speak about a sign. And yesterday I spoke about Saint. Saint escorted Kyo Sampon during his visit. But I cannot recall as to when Saint came to receive the delegation, and Com also went to receive the delegation, as I was assigned by Com to deal with other matters. And Saint worked in the office in Phnom Penh, in an office in Phnom Penh. And he accompanied Nuon Chi and Kyo Sampon during that visit.
And this visit, which you did not partake in, as far as you said, when did it happen? What year, which date, which month, if you remember? And who spoke to you about this visit?
I cannot recall it.
Et vous souvenez
And do you remember who spoke to you about this visit? How did you learn about it?
Look.
Yes, I recall that. At that time, in fact, I was in the central zone, and when I went to visit there, I was told that they went to visit the Tramco district.
D'accord.
Fine. So someone told you. You don't remember who. Is that what I must understand?
President, thank you, Your Council. It is now convenient for a short break.
Pas eu la réponse en français, Monsieur le Président. On n'a pas eu la réponse en français de Monsieur. Est-ce qu'on peut juste avoir sa réponse en français?
I didn't hear the response in French.
President, Mr. Pitcham, please respond to the last question regarding Kiev Sampon visit. We only heard your words in Khmer, and it's not been translated into English or French. Witness. Regarding the visit by Kiev Sampon, at that time, I had been transferred to the central zone, and I came to visit Takai province. And I was told by the people at Office 105 that Kisampon had come to visit the area accompanied by Son Sen. He came to visit about the rice productions and about the vegetation in the district. And that is all.
That's his answer, Mr. President.
President, thank you. It is now convenient to take a break, and we'll resume at 3 o'clock. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room for the witnesses and civil parties, and invite him as well as the duty counsel back into the courtroom at 3 o'clock. The court is now in recess.